The Nintendo 64 is my favorite console of all time. It's that weird stage of just starting mainstream 3D, and it was filled with experimentation. If companies had an idea, they just sort of went for it. It was a very different time from now, where a lot of games come out with similar control schemes or mechanics. Growing up, I had an epic-sized game collection for my N64, mostly due to my dad and I hunting for deals at old rental stores closing down, and maybe a yard sale or two. Or 50. In fact, one rental store near me that was inside our local grocery store, Pick and Save back in Wisconsin, was closing down. My dad took me there and told me to pick out all the games I wanted. That day I got somewhere around like 20 to 30 games. What a legendary time. Looking at my old collection, and even some newer games I've acquired since then for the N64, I was contemplating what do I feel were the best ones? The ones that I still go back to and play sometimes. Well, I thought I'd break it down and list my personal top 10 N64 games and why I consider them to be the best of the best. And a lot of you may look at me and say, oh, he's just gonna list a bunch of rare games. And while I do love rare, this will not be a top 10 list of just rare games. There certainly will be some surprises you probably won't expect. So get ready, smash that like button, and let's go over my personal top 10 N64 games. Starting with number 10. Growing up, I had a massive love for superheroes, and my two favorites are probably two everyone would regard as some of their favorites, Batman and Spider-Man. Mostly due to the fact I grew up watching Batman the Animated Series and the 90s Spider-Man Animated Series. So when I got this game, my mind was blown. The comic book-like cutscenes, the fact I could move around in a 3D environment fighting bad guys, and of course, crawl on walls and web sling. I just couldn't possibly conceive at the time how Spider-Man could get better. And to add on top of that, it used the voice of Spider-Man Unlimited Spider-Man, which at the time I was super into, and it was my costume of choice. And yes, you could change your costume to different Spider-Man variants. Holy crap, this game was like a love letter to Spider-Man fans at the time. Even just talking about it, I'm remembering how awesome it was. All the classic Spider-Man villains were here: Rhino, Mysterio, Doc Ock, Venom, Carnage, and a few cameos from other Marvel heroes like Punisher and Daredevil. This game was so much fun, and the gameplay may feel a bit dated today, but for the most part, it still holds up pretty well. 2 words: fire webs. It was also one of the few games to give a logical reason to having fog in the 3D environment. It's kinda cool they connected that to the story. Number 9. Duck Dodgers is a weird one. It's one no one would probably have expected to get on this list. I need to preface this as I'm not ranking these games as the top 10 greatest N64 games of all time, but saying my personal top 10 favorites, and I would be lying if I didn't include this game on the list. I acquired this one at a movie rental store, but this is one my dad and I had to hunt down to get it. It's one I rented and absolutely loved. I was captivated by its wackiness and colorful Looney Tune world. I wasn't the biggest Looney Tunes fan, but I certainly liked them. I remember watching Tiny Toons the most, to be honest. For some reason, I just adored this game. The boss fights, the different unique level settings, and the culmination of Planet X, with all the wacky things going on. Plus, it's got all that Looney Tunes charm, like stepping on an X and getting hit by a giant meteor, or throwing a cardboard cutout to distract the giant Yeti. Not to mention, it's a solid 3D platformer. Sometimes, it just feels like I can never get enough of this genre. Duck Dodgers is a bit pricey and slightly harder to find the cartridge, but honestly, it's a sort of obscure banger. It's not perfect, but there is fun to be had. Number 8. While a lot of people would probably cite Ocarina of Time as their preferred Zelda on the 64, not me. While Ocarina was this incredible, timeless adventure, Majora's Mask was this bizarre, creepy, and well-thought-out race against time. I actually remember being terrified of this game as a kid. Back in the day at Walmart, they had this on the N64 kiosk, and I watched someone else playing it, and when Link put on the Deku mask, and he's screaming as he transforms, I was in a panic. It terrified me. I also had an irrational fear of the live-action Pinocchio movie with Jonathan Taylor Thomas, so that's probably part of that. Wooden faces creep me out. But once I was a little bit older, I finally faced my fear and gave this game a go, and I loved it. I loved the time crunch aspect that made me panic and scramble to find everything. Some may find that it induced anxiety, but I found it very motivating to move as fast as possible. I also loved looping in the town and seeing the people do different things at different times, or depending on my actions. Also the fact that masks give you special powers like the bunny hood making you fast. I love that stuff, and the mysterious vibes and lore of this particular Zelda entry kept me thinking about it for years to come. This is a legendary title. Number 7. The N64 was home to many 3D platformers that stand the test of time in both charm and quality, and Rayman 2 was no exception. I always loved the mysterious world of Rayman 2. It was filled to the brim with charming, cartoony characters and had this creepy vibe underneath it all. Characters like Lee the Fairy and Polycus built out the mystique of the world, and every level in this game was filled with a variety of gameplay mechanics, from your basic 3D platformer to riding a shell on the ground, up a mountain, or flying. It got nuts. Rayman's moveset was also solid from the get-go and translated really well from 2D to 3D. Though I will say these days the combat feels a bit dated. At the time though, I would be busting up robo-pirates for hours upon hours. This was also my first experience with needing the controller pack to save, so until I got one I would leave my 64 on all night to keep continuing where I left off. Heaven forbid it froze or glitched or anything and required a reset. Honestly, I probably replayed the beginning of Rayman 2 like 3,681 times, and it still hasn't gotten old to me. I love this game. Number 6. Diddy Kong Racing is arguably the best kart racer on the N64, and in my opinion, it definitely is. I loved that it had a story mode and boss races, all while having really fun and fast gameplay. The character roster is filled to the brim with charm and introduced legends like Conker, Banjo, and Tip Top. And that music, that sweet, sweet music. Few games can take me back in time just by hearing the soundtrack, but this may be at the very top to induce that rush of nostalgia. I played this game single player, and I've played this game multiplayer many times, and it still doesn't get old to me. Rare was firing on all cylinders when they dropped this banger. I even love how the items were implemented and you could stack them to boost their effects and strategize what you would use for each lap. It just offered a different way of thinking in a kart racer. And the fact that it has secret items to find? Now we're talking. This is a timeless classic. Number 5. The next game on my list is going to shock people. Banjo-Kazooie edges out my top 5. I know everyone is probably in shock when they look at my channel and see that this is number 5 and not higher on the list, but look at it this way. There's a library of 388 games and this is my number 5. That's gotta mean something. This truly is one of my favorite games of all time due to the colorful characters, incredible world design, and the music. So many more bangers. I've never been able to play Banjo and be in a bad mood. I just don't think it's possible. This game is just too fun and too charming to not just love it. There's a reason that Banjo-Kazooie is often touted as one of the greatest platformers of all time, and often is on people's top N64 games list. It's just plain good. Number 4. I have probably sunk 500 hours or more in this next game. Star Fox 64 was perfectly designed for replayability, offering different routes and worlds to explore as you navigate through them, and even changing up what bosses you fight or what paths you take within the world you're on. As far as I'm concerned, this is one of the few games in history I would say is just about perfect. Seriously, if I try to fault this game in any way, I come up short. Maybe the multiplayer can be a little stale, but that's nitpicky because most are playing this for the single player experience and Star Fox 64 shines. I love the graphics of the flames behind your ship and hunting for those secret routes to get a mission accomplished. It was huge for me as a kid. Even something as small as hitting an asteroid and it explodes to reveal a power-up just gave me this sense of satisfaction. And not to mention it also has some of the best music on the console. Very iconic. The set pieces of each level are unique and the enemies surrounding it as well. I can't tell you how satisfying it is to take out bosses and enemies and save your friends. And the best part is, the more skill you have, the faster you can do it. I would often see how fast I could beat a boss as a kid. Star Fox 64 is such a great game. Now we're approaching the top 3. These are the games that I didn't just play. I lived for them. The games I would go to school and think about playing when I got home. These next few aren't just some of my favorite N64 games, but some of my favorite games of all time. Starting with number 3, Donkey Kong 64. It was the first game I ever had on my Nintendo 64. I got it Christmas of '99, and to this day, it remains one of my favorites. The vibes, the atmosphere, it's off the charts. And I'm a huge fan of collectibles, so having tons of them is something I actually appreciate. I loved exploring these super moody and colorful worlds. This is also another game that has music by composer Grant Kirkhope and has some of the most iconic tracks of all time. Every time I hear DK Isle, I get a sense of nostalgia. And it brilliantly plays off David Weiss's banger music from the DK Country series. I can't tell you how many hours I spent just exploring the island looking for things. It really takes me back to a simpler time. And the fact we have 5 characters to choose from, I always love the variety of special abilities, and that each got a unique fruit-related weapon. Well, except Tiny, who had feathers. This game was silly, moody, charming, and nostalgic all at the same time. The gameplay is just fun. One of the best platformers on the system for sure. I know it can be divisive these days among people because the internet is filled with dumb people who like to milk views by being overly negative and critical, but back in the late 90s and early 2000s, this game was peak. I remember being at a Culver's and some kids started singing the DK rap, and then other kids came out of the woodwork and started singing along, including myself. It was like a flash mob of kids singing the DK rap. I will always defend and love Donkey Kong 64. Number 2. Super Smash Bros. It's a game series that's still going strong to this day. In fact, I've played every entry in this series for probably like 1,000 hours plus, not an exaggeration. I've always loved Super Smash Bros. Since its inception on the N64. This game brought together so many characters I knew and grew to love. Mario, Link, Pikachu, Donkey Kong. This was epic as heck. The stages calling back to each series and the iconic music filled my room for hours. Plus the playground rumors of just unlocking new characters that didn't exist. This is actually the only game I ever had where I remember actually drawing out battle plans against my friends. My main when I was a kid was Kirby, though as I've gotten older I've moved in more of the direction of Fox to be faster. I remember countless days having my friend Ben over and playing Smash Bros. He'd be Pikachu, and we would battle over and over and over. At some point, I just got way too good from playing it constantly. Super Smash Bros. Is a love letter to Nintendo games, and guess what? I love it still. And now, it's time for my number 1. My number 1, for anyone who regularly follows my channel, you're probably not surprised, it's Banjo-Tooie. To this day, I still consider this one of my favorite games of all time. It's everything I loved about Banjo-Kazooie, but dialing it up to 11. More characters, more lore for the characters, expanding upon every single one of them introduced in the first game, while giving us so many more that are also just as well designed and iconic. More banging tracks from the GOAT Kirkhope, like Jinjo Village, Maya Hem Temple, and Hailfire Peaks. All of the moves you had in Kazooie right off the bat, and more to unlock, including being able to separate between Banjo and Kazooie, each with their own unique moveset. And getting to play as Mumbo and use magic. Different egg types like grenades, ice eggs, and the wacky clockwork eggs with a tiny mechanical Kazooie you can explode. Transformations in every single level, sometimes multiple, each with unique movesets and attributes. Huge, expansive worlds ripe for exploration and collecting, and finding secret paths between them. Tooie is an absolute incredible experience, perhaps even a little too ambitious at times for the N64 hardware, but that didn't stop me from loving this game. The charm is off the charts, and this game is just pure fun. And until the day we get a proper 3E, this will be my favorite Banjo game. But what about you guys? What are your personal top 10 N64 lists? Let me know in the comments below. I know mine changes all the time depending on how I feel, but my top 3 is pretty much the same always. Well, that's all I have for you. Please hit that like button to help support my content, and subscribe if you love the N64. Maybe even check out some of my other videos, and drop a follow on my other socials linked in the description. Until next time, have a good one.
Check you up back!